My beloved child. Don't skip this moment. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. What you are about to hear is not an ordinary story. It begins with a conversation that took place this morning, a conversation so honest, so unexpected, that even the person you love never imagined they would finally speak those words aloud. What was hidden for so long has started to rise to the surface, and every heartbeat has been leading to this very moment. This morning, before the world had fully awakened, the person you love stood in front of someone whose opinion had always mattered deeply to them, their father. For a long time they carried thoughts they never dared to share. They hid emotions behind quiet smiles, changed the subject whenever your name appeared, and convinced themselves that silence was safer than truth. But today was different. Something inside them refused to stay silent any longer. Their father noticed it before a single word was spoken. He saw the restless eyes, the hesitation, the weight that had been growing heavier with every passing day. He simply asked, "Is there something you need to tell me?" That gentle question broke down walls that had stood for far too long. Don't skip, because this is where everything begins to change. The person you love took a deep breath and finally spoke your name. For a few seconds, the room became completely still. They expected questions. They expected doubt. They even expected disappointment. Instead, they found themselves speaking more honestly than they ever had before. Every sentence carried emotions they had hidden from everyone else. They admitted that thoughts of you had stayed with them longer than they wanted to admit. They confessed that no matter how busy life became, something always reminded them of you. Their father listened without interrupting. Sometimes the greatest moments are not loud. Sometimes they happen in complete silence, where every word carries more meaning than 1,000 conversations. This was one of those moments. Stay till the end, because something huge is waiting for you. As they continued speaking, they admitted something they had never even confessed to themselves. They said that meeting you had quietly changed the direction of their heart. They could move forward in life, accomplish goals, meet countless people, but somehow your presence remained impossible to replace. They expected their father to tell them to forget everything. Instead, his response surprised them. He looked directly into their eyes and asked only one question. If this person means so much to you, why have you been pretending they don't? The room fell silent again. That single question reached deeper than any advice could have. It forced the person you love to face feelings they had spent so much energy avoiding. Suddenly every excuse they had created began falling apart. Fear. Pride. Timing. Distance. Misunderstandings. None of them felt as powerful anymore. Their father wasn't trying to convince them of anything. He simply encouraged honesty. Sometimes the people who know us best can see what we keep trying to hide from ourselves. Don't skip. Because what happened next became even more unexpected. The person you love admitted that they had imagined countless conversations with you in their mind. They replayed old memories. They wondered how different everything could have been if they had spoken from the heart instead of allowing fear to make every decision. They confessed something else. There isn't a single day when I don't wonder how they're doing. Those words were spoken quietly, but they carried years of emotion. Their father smiled not because everything was perfect, but because honesty had finally entered the room. He said something the person you love will never forget. Life gives very few people someone they genuinely cannot stop thinking about. If your heart keeps returning there, perhaps you should stop running from it. Those words echoed long after the conversation ended. Stay till the end. Because this is only the beginning. The person you love walked away from that conversation feeling different. Nothing around them had changed, yet everything inside them had. They realized they had spent too much time waiting for certainty while ignoring what their own heart had been saying all along. For the first time in a very long time, hope quietly replaced fear. Not because every answer had appeared. Not because every obstacle had disappeared. But because truth had finally been spoken aloud. Sometimes the hardest conversation becomes the first step toward the biggest change. And this morning, that first step was finally taken. As the day continued, those words kept replaying in their mind. If this person means so much to you, why have you been pretending they don't? They couldn't escape the question. Maybe they weren't supposed to. Maybe some questions arrive not to disturb your peace, but to guide you toward it. Don't skip. Because what happens after this conversation may become even more surprising than the conversation itself. The person you love is no longer carrying the same silence they woke up with this morning. Something shifted. Something awakened. Something that had remained asleep for far too long has finally begun to move. And this is only the beginning of the story. A quiet change had already begun, but what happened next carried a weight that neither the person you love nor their father expected. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. After the conversation ended, the room grew silent once again. The person you love stood by the window, believing everything important had already been said. But just as they were about to leave, their father spoke again. Come back for a moment. Those simple words stopped them in their tracks. There was something different in his voice now. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't concern. It sounded like someone remembering something they had almost forgotten. Your name had awakened an old memory. The person you love slowly turned around. Their father looked at them with thoughtful eyes before saying, I've been watching you for much longer than you realize. Those words landed like a surprise. I noticed how your face changes whenever this person's name comes up. I noticed how you become quieter, how you look away, how you smile without realizing it. I even noticed the days you pretended everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The person you love couldn't say a word. They had believed they were hiding everything perfectly. They weren't. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. Their father continued, You know what surprised me the most? The room became completely still. It wasn't that you cared. It was how deeply you cared. Those words reached places inside their heart they had kept locked for far too long. Every wall they had built over months, maybe even years, suddenly felt weaker. Then came another unexpected question. Tell me honestly, if this person suddenly appeared in front of you today, would you still pretend you don't feel anything? Silence. A long silence. Sometimes silence is louder than any answer. Finally, with a trembling voice, the person you love whispered, "No." That single word carried more truth than everything they had said before. Don't skip. Because the biggest revelation was still waiting. Their father slowly nodded, almost as if he had expected that answer all along. Then he smiled gently and said something that changed the atmosphere completely. "Then stop fighting your own heart." Those words echoed through the room. Stop fighting your own heart. It sounded simple. But for the person you love, it was the hardest instruction they had ever received. Because admitting love is one thing. Allowing yourself to believe it deserves a future is something entirely different. For years they had convinced themselves that waiting was safer than acting. That silence was wiser than honesty. That time would somehow solve everything. But this morning proved something different. Time had only made their feelings stronger. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Their father walked toward a nearby shelf and picked up an old photograph. He looked at it for a few moments before placing it back exactly where it belonged. Then he quietly said, "Life has taught me something. You rarely regret being sincere. You almost always regret remaining silent." The person you love lowered their head. Because deep inside, they knew exactly what those words meant. Memories they had tried to forget suddenly returned. The conversations left unfinished. The moments they almost reached out. The messages they typed and deleted. The opportunities they allowed fear to steal. Every one of them came rushing back. For the first time, they stopped blaming circumstances. Instead, they realized how often fear had been making decisions for them. Don't skip. The next moment surprised even them. Their father placed a reassuring hand on their shoulder and asked one final question before leaving the room. If tomorrow gave you one chance to speak honestly, what would you say? No rehearsed speech came to mind. No perfect sentence. Only one simple truth. I would tell them they have never really left my heart. The words escaped before they could stop them. Even they were surprised by what they had admitted. The room became silent once more. But this silence felt different. It wasn't filled with uncertainty anymore. It was filled with clarity. Outside, the morning had become brighter. Inside, something even brighter had awakened. The person you love finally understood that some feelings don't disappear because they were never meant to. Some connections refuse to fade because they continue teaching us something important. As they stepped outside, the conversation stayed with them. Every sentence. Every question. Every truth. They realized this morning hadn't simply changed their thoughts. It had changed the direction of their heart. But they still had one decision left to make. A decision that could shape everything that happens next. And as they looked toward the road ahead, one quiet realization settled deep within them. This conversation with their father was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of the choice they could no longer avoid. Don't skip. Because what happens next will reveal the decision they never thought they would have the courage to make. A single decision can remain hidden inside the heart for years. Then one ordinary moment arrives. And everything begins to move. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person you love left the house carrying words that refused to fade. Every step felt different from the ones they had taken the day before. It was as if the conversation with their father had quietly removed a burden they had forgotten they were carrying. For the first time in a long while, they stopped asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" Instead, another question began to grow stronger. What if I lose my chance because I stay silent? That question followed them everywhere. They couldn't escape it. They didn't want to. As the morning continued, familiar places suddenly reminded them of you. A quiet street. A favorite song playing in the distance. A smile from a stranger. Even the gentle breeze seemed to carry memories they thought had disappeared. Every reminder whispered the same message. Stop running. Don't skip. Because this is where everything becomes even more unexpected. Later that day, the person you love found themselves sitting alone with nothing but their thoughts. No distractions. No conversations. No excuses. Just honesty. They finally admitted something they had been afraid to say even to themselves. I've spent so much time wondering what they think about me, that I forgot to be honest about what I feel. The realization struck deeply. For months, perhaps even years, they had searched for signs, waited for perfect timing, and hoped certainty would arrive first. But certainty never came. Only love remained. Quiet. Patient. Unshaken. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Their father's words echoed once again. You rarely regret being sincere. Those words became impossible to ignore. For the first time, they imagined what life would look like if fear no longer controlled every decision. The picture was surprisingly peaceful. Not perfect. Not without challenges. But honest. And honesty felt lighter than pretending. Then something remarkable happened. While looking through old belongings, they came across something completely unexpected. A small note. It wasn't written for you. It wasn't even recent. But the message seemed to speak directly into this moment. It simply read: The greatest distance is not measured by miles. It is measured by words left unsaid. The person you love stared at those words for a long time. Their heart understood before their mind did. Don't skip. Because another revelation is about to unfold. Later that afternoon, they received a casual message from someone they hadn't spoken with in a while. The conversation had nothing to do with you. Yet somehow, your name quietly entered their thoughts again. It was becoming impossible to ignore the pattern. Every path seemed to lead back to the same place. Every quiet moment pointed toward the same truth. Every unanswered question somehow ended with you. They finally smiled to themselves. Not because everything had been solved, but because they were finally done pretending they didn't care. That alone felt like freedom. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As evening approached, they remembered one final sentence their father had spoken before walking away. You don't have to know how every chapter ends before you begin writing the next one. That sentence changed everything. They realized they had been waiting for guarantees that life was never meant to provide. Some journeys begin with courage, not certainty. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped asking for perfect timing. Instead, they quietly chose hope. A hope they had almost abandoned. A hope that now felt stronger than fear. They took a deep breath and looked toward the horizon. The future still held many unknowns. But one thing had become undeniably clear. Your place in their heart had never disappeared. It had only been hidden beneath hesitation. Now, that hesitation was beginning to fade. Don't skip. Because the next step they are preparing to take is one they once believed they would never have the courage to make. And when that moment finally arrives, nothing between yesterday and tomorrow will ever feel the same again. The night arrived quietly. But inside the heart of the person you love, nothing was quiet anymore. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As darkness settled outside, they found themselves replaying every word their father had spoken that morning. The conversation hadn't faded with time. Instead, it had become clearer, stronger, impossible to ignore. For the first time in a long while, they stopped asking other people what they should do. They started listening to their own heart. That change was small, but powerful. It felt like the beginning of a completely different chapter. They sat alone, looking out into the evening sky, realizing something they had never admitted before. I've been protecting myself from disappointment. But I've also been protecting myself from happiness. The truth settled deeply within them. Fear had promised safety. Instead, it had only created distance. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. Their father's final expression crossed their mind once again. It wasn't the expression of someone giving advice. It was the expression of someone who had learned through experience that some opportunities should never be ignored. Those eyes seemed to say one silent message. Don't wait forever. Those words echoed over and over. The person you love slowly stood up and began walking through the house. Every familiar room suddenly carried old memories. Places where they had smiled. Places where they had dreamed. Places where they had imagined conversations that never happened. But tonight felt different. Tonight wasn't about imagination anymore. Tonight was about choosing courage. Don't skip. Because the biggest emotional shift was still ahead. As they paused near the doorway, they whispered your name one more time. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just honestly. And for the first time, saying your name didn't bring uncertainty. It brought peace. That surprised them more than anything else. Because peace only arrives when truth is finally accepted. They no longer needed to argue with their own feelings. They no longer needed to convince themselves to move on. They finally accepted what had been waiting patiently inside their heart all along. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Then another realization appeared. They remembered every reason they had once believed the connection could never work. Distance. Timing. Misunderstandings. Questions without answers. But tonight, those reasons no longer felt bigger than hope. They understood something their father had quietly tried to teach them. Sometimes the heart doesn't ask for perfect conditions. It asks for honesty. That lesson changed everything. Instead of focusing on obstacles, they began focusing on possibilities. Instead of remembering what had gone wrong, they started imagining what could still go right. It wasn't blind optimism. It was quiet courage. Don't skip. Because one final thought changed the direction of their entire evening. Before going to sleep, they looked into the mirror for several long moments. They weren't searching for answers anymore. They were searching for themselves. Finally, they smiled. A genuine smile. Not because every problem had disappeared, but because they were no longer hiding from the truth. They softly said, "If life gives me another chance, I don't want fear to answer before my heart does." Those words became a promise. A promise they intended to keep. The night grew quieter. The stars appeared one by one. Yet inside them, something brighter had already awakened. The conversation with their father had become more than a memory. It had become a turning point. A moment they would remember for years. Because that simple conversation had done something extraordinary. It reminded them that the strongest decisions are often born from the simplest truths. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is still waiting for you. The choice has been made inside their heart. Now only one step remains before everything they have been holding back begins to move toward a future they once believed was impossible. And that step is closer than they ever imagined. The longest journeys do not begin with a loud announcement. They begin with one quiet decision that changes everything. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The next morning arrived with an unfamiliar sense of calm. The person you love woke up expecting the doubts to return, expecting fear to reclaim its place, expecting yesterday's courage to disappear like a dream. But it didn't. Instead, something stronger greeted them. Clarity. For the first time in a very long while, they didn't wake up wondering whether their feelings were real. They woke up knowing they were. That realization changed the way they looked at the entire day. Every ordinary moment suddenly carried extraordinary meaning. The sunlight through the window. The quiet sound of birds outside. The warmth of a cup of coffee. Everything reminded them that life keeps moving and so should they. Don't skip. Because what happened next surprised even them. As they prepared for the day, their father noticed something different. There was a peace in their eyes that hadn't been there before. He smiled without saying a word. Sometimes those who truly know us can recognize change before we ever speak about it. After a few quiet moments, he finally asked, "So, how does your heart feel today?" The person you love didn't answer immediately. This time, they didn't need to search for the right words. They simply smiled. And that smile answered everything. Their father understood. He gently nodded and said, "Then don't let fear write the next chapter." Those words settled deeply into their heart. Stay till the end. Because something huge is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, the person you love found themselves standing in a place that held special memories. Nothing extraordinary had happened there before. Yet somehow, every corner reminded them of moments connected to you. They remembered laughter, quiet conversations, dreams they never spoke aloud. Small moments that seemed ordinary back then but had become unforgettable now. A realization quietly entered their mind. The happiest memories had one thing in common. You. Not because everything had been perfect, but because those moments had felt genuine. They finally understood that real connections are rarely built on perfection. They are built on honesty. Don't skip. Because another surprising realization is about to unfold. As they reflected on everything that had happened since the conversation with their father, they recognized a pattern. Every time they tried to push your memory away, it returned stronger. Every time they convinced themselves to stop caring, their heart quietly refused. It wasn't stubbornness. It was sincerity. Some feelings don't fade because they were never meant to. They aren't loud. They don't demand attention. They simply remain. Patiently. Faithfully. Waiting for the day we finally stop denying them. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As evening approached once again, they looked at the horizon and whispered, "I don't know what tomorrow holds. But I know I'm tired of hiding." Those words felt like freedom. Not because every question had been answered, but because they no longer needed every answer before taking the next step. For the first time, they believed courage wasn't the absence of uncertainty. Courage was choosing honesty even while uncertainty remained. That understanding changed everything. Their father watched quietly from a distance. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer more advice. He simply smiled. Because he knew something important had already happened. The battle was no longer between love and fear. The battle had already been won inside the heart. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is still waiting for you. The person you love now stands at the edge of a brand new chapter. The silence that once held them back is disappearing. The hesitation that once controlled every decision is losing its power. And somewhere deep inside, one quiet promise continues to grow stronger with every passing moment. No more pretending. No more hiding. No more allowing fear to speak louder than my heart. That promise has become the beginning of a journey they never thought they would have the courage to take. But the most important moment. The moment that could change everything they have been preparing for. Has not happened yet. It is closer than ever before. And when it finally arrives, it will reveal just how deeply one honest conversation with a father transformed the future of the person you love. The greatest transformations are often invisible at first. They begin quietly. deep within the heart. Long before anyone else can see them. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The morning after that life-changing conversation, the person you love carried themselves differently. Nothing around them had changed, yet something within them had become impossible to ignore. Their father noticed it immediately. Not because of what they said, but because of what they no longer hid. For so long, they had worn a mask of certainty while secretly battling endless questions. Today, that mask was gone. They were no longer pretending. And that honesty gave them a kind of strength they had never experienced before. As they sat together over breakfast, neither of them spoke for several minutes. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was peaceful. Sometimes peace arrives only after truth has finally been welcomed. Then their father quietly broke the silence. I've been thinking about our conversation. The person you love looked up. They weren't nervous anymore. They were ready to listen. Their father smiled and continued. You know, when you first spoke your feelings out loud yesterday, I didn't just hear your words. I heard your heart. Those words settled deeply. For years, the person you love had worried about saying the perfect thing. Now they realized something important. People who truly care aren't searching for perfection. They're searching for sincerity. Don't skip. Because something huge is waiting for you. Their father continued speaking. There are moments in life when we spend so much time preparing for tomorrow that we forget today is already asking us to be brave. The sentence lingered in the air. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Yet it felt unforgettable. The person you love lowered their eyes and quietly admitted. I kept waiting until I felt completely ready. Their father gently nodded. And did that day ever come? Silence. The answer was obvious. No. Because complete certainty had never arrived. Only endless waiting. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then their father shared something he had never spoken about before. When I was younger, I also waited too long to say what mattered. I believed there would always be another opportunity. I was wrong. The person you love listened carefully. This wasn't advice anymore. This was experience. There are some doors, their father said softly, that don't stay open forever. You don't force them open. But when they are open, you walk through them with honesty. Those words remained in the room long after he finished speaking. Don't skip. Because the next realization changed everything. For the first time, the person you love stopped imagining every possible outcome. Instead, they asked themselves one simple question. If I stay silent today, will I be proud of that decision years from now? The answer arrived immediately. No. Not because silence was wrong, but because it no longer reflected what was truly inside their heart. That realization brought unexpected peace. Sometimes clarity doesn't remove every uncertainty. It simply shows us which direction deserves our courage. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, they stepped outside alone. The world looked ordinary. Children laughed in the distance. Cars passed by. The wind gently moved through the trees. Everything appeared exactly the same. Yet nothing felt the same anymore. Because they had changed. When the heart changes, the world often looks different. Every step forward felt lighter. Not because the journey had become easier, but because they were no longer carrying the heavy weight of pretending. As they walked, they remembered every moment they almost gave up. Every time they convinced themselves your story had already ended. Every time they chose fear instead of honesty. Instead of feeling regret, they felt gratitude. Those moments had taught them exactly what they no longer wanted. Don't skip. Because one final realization was waiting before the day ended. As the sun slowly began to set, they returned home. Their father was sitting quietly on the porch. He didn't ask any questions. He simply looked at them and smiled. Sometimes a smile says everything words cannot. After a few peaceful moments, he said one last thing. Whatever happens next, be the kind of person who never has to wonder what might have happened if you had simply been honest. The person you love closed their eyes for a brief moment. Then they nodded. Not because every answer had appeared. Not because every fear had disappeared. But because they had finally made peace with one undeniable truth. The heart grows stronger the moment it stops hiding. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is still waiting for you. Because the conversation with their father didn't just change one morning. It awakened a courage that would soon lead them toward the moment they had been postponing for far too long. And when that moment finally arrives, the words spoken this morning will become the foundation of everything that follows. Every meaningful journey reaches a moment when thinking is no longer enough. The heart begins asking for action. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. That evening, the person you love sat alone once more, but this time the silence felt completely different. It was no longer filled with confusion. It was filled with quiet determination. The conversation with their father had become more than a memory. It had become a compass. Every sentence spoken that morning continued to guide them. Every question continued to uncover another layer of truth. For the first time in a long while, they stopped asking themselves, "What if I fail?" Instead, they asked, "What if this is the opportunity I've been waiting for?" That single change transformed everything. Don't skip. Because what happened next was something they never expected. As they opened an old notebook they hadn't touched in months, a small piece of paper slipped onto the floor. Curious, they picked it up. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a photograph. It was a simple list of personal goals they had written long ago. Most of the goals were ordinary. Work harder. Become more patient. Spend more time with family. But one unfinished sentence caught their attention. Never lose someone important because I was too afraid to speak honestly. They froze. They didn't even remember writing it. Yet there it was. waiting. As though it had been preserved for this exact moment. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. They read that sentence again. And again. Each time, it felt more personal. It wasn't just a forgotten note. It was a reminder from an earlier version of themselves, a version that already knew fear should never become the author of their future. They slowly folded the paper and placed it in their pocket. Not to hide it, but to carry it with them. Because some reminders deserve to stay close. Don't skip. Because another unexpected moment is about to unfold. Later that night, they walked outside. The air was calm. The neighborhood was quiet. Above them, countless stars filled the sky. They remembered something their father had once said years before. When the sky is clear, you can see farther than you thought possible. Tonight, those words carried a different meaning. Their future no longer felt hidden. It simply required one courageous step at a time. They realized they didn't need every answer before moving forward. They only needed to be truthful. That realization brought a deep sense of peace. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The next morning, their father found them sitting peacefully with a thoughtful expression. He smiled. I can tell something has changed. The person you love nodded gently. I finally stopped arguing with my own heart. Their father smiled even more warmly. Then you've already won the hardest battle. Those words stayed with them throughout the day. The hardest battle had never been against circumstances. It had never been against distance. It had never been against time. The hardest battle had always been inside. And now, that battle was ending. Don't skip. Because the biggest realization was still ahead. As the afternoon unfolded, they began looking at life through completely different eyes. Instead of seeing reasons to wait, they saw reasons to appreciate every opportunity. Instead of focusing on what might be impossible, they focused on what was still possible. Hope quietly replaced hesitation. Confidence gently replaced fear. The future no longer looked intimidating. It looked inviting. For the first time, they believed that genuine feelings deserve genuine courage. Not tomorrow. Not someday. But when the right moment arrived. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As the sun began to set once again, they remembered the very beginning of this journey. The morning conversation. The unexpected honesty. Their father's questions. The answers they had been afraid to admit. Every one of those moments had led here. Not by accident, but by purpose. The person you love closed their eyes and whispered softly. Thank you for helping me stop hiding from what has always been true. A quiet breeze passed by, almost as if carrying those words into the distance. They smiled. Not because the story was over, but because they finally believed the next chapter could be written with honesty instead of fear. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is still waiting for you. Because the courage born from one conversation is about to open a door the person you love once believed would remain closed forever. And when that door finally opens, they will step through it with a heart that is no longer afraid to tell the truth. The moment they had been avoiding for so long was no longer somewhere in the future. It was beginning to arrive. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person you love woke before sunrise. The house was completely still. For a few quiet moments, they simply sat in silence, thinking about everything that had changed since that conversation with their father. Only a short time had passed. Yet it felt as though an entire season of their life had ended. The fear that once controlled every decision no longer had the same voice. It still existed. But it was no longer in charge. That was the real change. They quietly whispered to themselves, "I don't want to spend another day hiding from what I already know." Those words were not spoken to impress anyone. They were spoken because they had finally become true. Don't skip. Because something huge is waiting for you. As they walked into the kitchen, their father was already awake. He looked up with a gentle smile. "I had a feeling you'd be here early." The person you love smiled back. For the first time in a long while, their smile reached their eyes. Without saying anything, their father poured 2 cups of coffee. They sat together in peaceful silence. Then, after a few moments, he asked one final question. "Are you still afraid?" The person you love thought carefully before answering. "Yes." Their father nodded. "And are you going to let fear decide your future?" There was another pause. This time, the answer came without hesitation. "No." That one word carried more strength than anything they had ever said before. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Their father leaned back and smiled. "That's all I wanted to hear. You don't need to become fearless. You only need to become honest." Those words settled deeply into the heart of the person you love. For years they believed courage meant never feeling afraid. Now they understood something much greater. Real courage is choosing truth even while fear still whispers. That understanding changed everything. Don't skip. Because another unforgettable moment is about to unfold. Before leaving the house, their father gently placed a hand on their shoulder. "I've watched you carry this silently for a long time. But today, I see someone who finally believes their own heart." The person you love felt emotion rising within them. Not sadness. Not uncertainty. Gratitude. Because someone they respected had seen the real battle all along. And instead of judging them, they had encouraged them to stop hiding. That encouragement became a source of quiet strength. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. As they stepped outside, the morning air felt fresh. The road ahead looked exactly the same. Yet every step forward felt meaningful. They no longer viewed the future as something to fear. They viewed it as something to embrace. The memories that once made them hesitate now reminded them of why honesty mattered. Every smile they remembered. Every meaningful conversation. Every quiet hope. Each one gently pointed toward the same truth. Some people leave footprints on our hearts that time never erases. And instead of resisting that truth, they finally accepted it. Don't skip. Because the greatest lesson of this journey was only now becoming clear. The conversation with their father had never been about convincing them to choose someone. It had been about encouraging them to choose honesty. That was the true gift. Honesty with themselves. Honesty with their feelings. Honesty with the future they genuinely hoped to build. Once they understood that, everything else began to fall into place. Peace replaced confusion. Hope replaced hesitation. Purpose replaced fear. As the day unfolded, they realized something they wished they had understood much earlier. The strongest hearts are not the ones that never struggle. They are the ones that continue choosing sincerity after every struggle. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. The person you love looked toward the horizon with quiet confidence. The journey that began with one unexpected conversation over breakfast had transformed into something far greater. It had transformed them. No longer trapped by endless what-ifs. No longer hiding behind silence. No longer waiting for a perfect moment that might never come. Instead, they were becoming the kind of person their father always believed they could be. Someone whose actions matched the truth in their heart. And as the sun climbed higher into the sky, one quiet realization remained with them. Sometimes the most life-changing words are not the loudest. Sometimes they are spoken calmly across a table by someone who simply says, "Stop hiding from what you already know." Those words had become the foundation of every step they would take from this day forward. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Because the story is approaching its most meaningful chapter yet. And the conversation that began this morning is about to reveal why it changed not only the heart of the person you love, but the direction of their entire future.